Namaskar. Let's have another edition of Human Geography, and the module we will discuss today is the division of humankind. Although we are a one world and one people, we are intrinsically divided by a number of factors. The factors that cause division amongst us are several, and the most important being language, religion, race and discrimination, caste and creed, classes and money, conflicts and disputes, politics, hatred, envy and malice, jealousy, blatant favoritism, indifference, and today, digital divide. There are indeed so many factors that divide us that it is difficult to see whether or not we are one people. India is a land of contrasts. In India too, all of these factors, language to digital divide, we are divided by religion, we are divided by caste and creed, we are divided by differences in our cultures, values and norms, although we are all Indians. Factors that cause division among mankind are essentially favoritism is one, where passive fathers tend to favor the child who's easiest to raise. Hatred is another terrible problem because it generates other problems. Envy has a sister in malice, and the two usually work together. And deception always causes division. There is racism in the world, even if we are trying to forget that we are different races. Although there is no biological evidence of race being a biological factor, it is only a social concept. Even then, racism reigns supreme in many parts of the world. For example, in North America, blacks and Latin Americans are less likely to receive appropriate health and medical care because they are blacks and Hispanics. They are also less likely to undergo coronary bypass surgery because they are of a race that the others don't care about. They are less likely to receive dialysis or kidney transplant. They are less likely to receive lower quality or basic clinical services. Even in healthcare, which is a very important aspect of life, that the race plays a major role in discrimination. Discrimination is therefore a dividing factor. If you look at North America as an example again for the division of humankind, there are three reactions. The one reaction we call is the discrimination by color and race. The second is called the prejudice. Prejudice again because of color and race. And there is a third reaction, is what we call stereotypes. A class-divided social categorization exists among all of us, among all of humankind, whether North Americans, Europeans, South Americans, Africans, or Asians. We are all divided by a social categorization called class. In certain schools in modern America, for example, a teacher may give a class exercise where she divides the children by their blue eyes and brown eyes. So blue eyes versus brown eyes is a familiar class race problem in America. When you look at the stereotype content, there is warmth and there is competence. Warmth is a quality of human beings. Most human beings are warm or has warmth to their near and dear ones. Women, for example, have a lot of warmth. Rich, for example, have a lot of competence. Homeless people look for warmth. The elderly look for warmth. So we categorize all of these people into those of warmth and competence. If they have both, they have a peaceful and happy life. Now, if you look at the stereotype content model, there are two fundamental dimensions. As we have seen, it is a warmth and competence. Those who are competent could normally be a negative stereotype. Because they are competent, they may not be warm enough for other people because they live in a world of competition. But if you look at a family, for example, there are mixed stereotypes. There is what we call paternalistic stereotypes. People who have high warmth and low competence. For example, the elderly, the disabled people, and some gender stereotypes are of this variety. There are also envious stereotypes. There are people who have low warmth but high competence. If you consider the world people, you would say Asians and Jews are envious stereotypes who have low warmth and high competence. There are four different combinations of warmth and competence associated with different inner group emotions, because people are also divided by emotions. The stereotype content model tells us that there are four qualities which may divide the people. And the first quality is called the contempt. A contempt is one where there is low competence and low warmth. The second is called pity. In this, there is low competence but high warmth. Third is called envy. There is high competence and low warmth. Fourth is called pride. There is high competence and high warmth. So we may classify people sociologically and psychologically into several classes and groups, and thus divide the mankind. Karl Marx has certain ideas, of which the idea of social class is very important. Karl Marx has made major intellectual contributions in elaborating the conflict model of society, specifically the theory of social change based upon antagonisms between social classes. The insight is that power originates primarily in economic production and is concerned with the social origins of alienation. People are alienated because of economic production. There is also what he calls antagonistic cooperation. Marx argued that because human beings must organize their activities in order to clothe, feed, and house themselves, He believed that every society is based on economic base because economy today is the most important of all aspects of human beings. It is the exact form of social organization which varies from society to society and from era to era. We have earlier seen what we call a division of labor. The organization of economic activities leads us to the division of labor, which causes the formation of class, which is a divisive factor. Over time, the classes develop different material interests and become antagonistic. Thus, antagonistic classes become the primary actors in the historical drama of division of humankind. Now let's look at an economic organization, how economic organization could be the reason for the division of mankind. Economic organization is essentially to meet our material needs, which eventually comes to determine virtually everything in the social structure. All social institutions are dependent upon the economic base, and analysis of society will always reveal its underlying economic arrangement. You probably remember we have talked about people and places and work are intricately related because of the economic organization that the society requires. In his class theory, Karl Marx says, the history of all existing societies is a history of class struggles. According to this view, ever since human society emerged from its primitive and relatively undifferentiated state, it has remained fundamentally divided between classes, who class in the pursuit of their class interests. Now there is something called social class. The division of labor gives rise to different classes, which leads to different interests and also give rise to different political views, ethical views, philosophical views, religious views, and ideological views. All of these viewpoints differentiate human beings one from the other, and the societies one from the other, and one era to another. A social class also views and expresses existing class relations and tends either to consolidate or undermine the power and authority of the dominant class. According to Marx again, men and women are born into societies in which property relations have already been determined. These property relations in turn give rise to different social classes. For example, just as man cannot choose who is to be his father, so he has no choice as to his class. There is no way one can choose his class. The class is determined for him. Therefore, a social class is one in which a man is ascribed to a specific class by virtue of his birth. Once he has become a feudal lord or a serf, an industrial worker or a capitalist, his behavior is prescribed for him. His attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors are all determined. The theory of social class has a large role to play and a large role in defining the man, the humans. In the preface to his book, Karl Marx writes, "Here individuals are dealt with only as fact, as they are personifications of economic categories, and embodiments of particular class relations and class interests. So, looking at social class. Social class does not deny the operation of other variables in human behavior, but humans concentrate on class roles as primary determinants of their behavior. The class roles influence men whether they are conscious of the class interests or not. Men may well be unaware of their class interests and yet be moved by them, as it were, behind the backs. And so, looking back to the large number of factors that divide the human beings into several classes and several groups and several cultures and diverse classes. In our own country, language has divided us. Religion has divided us, although we are all Indians. Although there is no racism in India, but racism in different kinds exists in India. Caste and creed are such that they divide human beings. In a village, for example, if the village people are divided among themselves because of the caste and creed, it's because of the caste divisions. There are clashes, there are conflicts and disputes. The conflicts and disputes can only be negotiated and resolved. It is important for our people to think of the importance of negotiation and compromise. It's like meeting halfway and resolving the differences there are. But of course, there are other factors like the politics, like hatred of politics, like envy among people, like malice among us, the jealous nature of individuals, and the blatant favoritism shown to people of their own caste or creed, and also the indifference in the society. Above all today, the digital divide. I believe digital divide requires some explanation. It is important in today's information age that we need to be aware of what goes on and what happens. A digital divide is one that is in the way of the people knowing or not knowing what happens amidst us. There is unequal access to the digital devices. Although today in India, internal communications and international communications will become easier because of such gadgets as mobiles, that the digital divide is becoming more important, because there are still 70% of people who have no access to information, who cannot afford. It is the availability of information and access to information that would make our people knowledgeable and intelligent, and at the same time, people of one class. In India today, a digital divide is becoming an issue because of differential access to the digital devices. Unless the devices are made available, and I believe there is a program of the government that is trying to introduce access to digital devices such that information would become available and people of India would become knowledgeable. And such a knowledge would one day help them overcome discrimination and indifference. So humankind, whether in America or in Europe, Africa or South America, or in Asia, are all divided by several causes. And it is important that we understand that such causes like language, religion, classes, and money have greater role to play also in bringing the people together as one and live happily together. So the factors that cause division may indeed become the factors that bridge the classes and communities. And we will wait for such a situation. And such a situation is not very far off, because in the digital devices, the information society and knowledge society we are creating would be able to help us find peace and harmony among all of us, all different classes of the world. Thank you.